Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, been a busy few days. Arizona had to kind of calm down a little bit, but the new AD, Tommy Lloyd's extension, basketball team's pretty damn good. They always are, and Jason joins us. Craig and Paul, David Smoak on 365 Sports, and we missed you. Jason Scheer joins us. So, what has been the reaction of the new AD coming in, introduced, I guess, yesterday or when it was, from Missouri?
It's been positive. I haven't really heard many negative thoughts about her. Her press conference was very impressive. In Tucson, it is very important, or I should say it's looked very highly upon when the person has a connection to the university. She went to law school at Arizona. She knew a bunch of people in the crowd, so to speak, during her press conference, and relayed some information about when she was a student and hit all the talking points. But I think it was impressive also that she pretty much said, look, I know there's financial issues and I'm going to dive right in starting pretty much now. And then we're going to get this whole thing fixed up.
Jason, there were conflicting reports about how much money they are actually in the hole. We do know it's in the 9-figure range. How hard will it be for her to dig them out of that hole?
It's going to be interesting. The plan is basically an 18-month plan, on the best side. So it's not going to be a quick fix. But there's a lot of stuff that she could probably do to clean up, some of it quickly. The AD has the administration, the athletic department has a lot of positions that don't necessarily do stuff that are making very high salaries. I think she takes a look at that. I think she takes a look at some other things as well. It's not a dire situation, but it's also something that's not going to get fixed quickly. And they were pretty clear that, everyone needs to be patient. There's going to be patience involved. And it's not, going to be a situation where all of a sudden Arizona has a ton of money to spend next week. But it is something that they are very confident will get fixed.
All right, I got to read this tweet. This is something from you in the last half hour because we've discussed this. Stop delaying the inevitable, and break away from the rest of college football. The path the Big Ten and SEC are on now is just dumb, and the goal is obvious. We have brought that up. We have discussed it. I can't imagine it will ever actually happen, but they damn sure want you to know they can do it.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen either. It's all about money, and and there would be a limited situation if they do break up. But, it's just so obvious. Like, we haven't even had the playoffs, but now they want to expand it. And the reason they want to expand it is so there's more Big Ten and SEC schools involved. And, before you know it, you're playing games that you're playing during the regular season anyway, and you're just double dipping. And it is very obvious what is going on, and I think we're kind of losing the focus of college football. Like, I love college football, but we're heading in a direction where it's just not going to be as fun as it used to be.
Jason, there's multiple reports out now from Chris Vanini saying that they talked about everything, 14, 16 teams, no decisions were made. They feel like they're finally moving on, but all that still makes me nervous if I'm anybody else, because the Big Ten and SEC not getting what they want when they bring something up doesn't feel like they're just going to be like, oh, well, we tried. Let's move on.
Yeah, and the whole intro, it's funny because it's taken off the focus of the fact that ESPN still hasn't, there's still no deal for the college football playoffs. Like, they have to get that deal done, and that deal's not even done, and they're already talking about expanding it even more and all that. And you're right. There's only so much power that the Big 12, the ACC, these other conferences have, because at the end of the day, it's the Big Ten and the SEC. And if they really want something and they really push for it, someone is going to have to say no. And that might be TV, that might be other conferences as a whole. I don't know. But you're right. It feels like when those conferences want something, it's just inevitable, and they're going to get it done.
By the way, Bob Thompson, who's right around the corner, lives in Scottsdale, likes to look at the TV deals. He was talking about how the increase with what the report was with ESPN and the playoff was not as much as he thought it would be, or that most speculated or thought it would be in the end. He's already saying this, that if you go to 16, Do that. He said it goes to 16 quickly. Seats 1 through 4 can get an additional 3 to 4 million each, plus on-campus games. It's like we can't even go to sleep without it changing.
Yeah, I mean, and then what happens after that, right? Like, what happens at 16? Do we stop then? Because what happens if there's more money if you go to 24 or whatever it is? And so it just feels like me personally, I always think of basketball when it feels like every year someone brings up expanding the tournament. I personally hate the idea. Like, to me, it devalues the regular season beyond, what's the point? Let's just play one big tournament. And it feels like that's where we're headed in college football, is when does it stop? As long as the money's still there and these schools are making money, and by these schools I mean the Big Ten and the SEC, they're going to keep pushing to make sure that their members and their conferences as a whole make more money until there's no more money to be made, whatever that looks like.
So, Jason, on the football side of things, we know there was the hire with Brent Brennan. I think we touched base with you shortly after that. He's able to secure, obviously, Fafita, McMillan, various others. Others decide to go join the transfer portal. But how would you describe sort of the temperature in the room right now with Arizona football as they start to get ready for spring practices?
I think it's pretty good. It could have been a lot worse. I mean, the reality is if they lost Noah Fafita and Tatori McMillan, they would have lost the entire offense. Instead, they pretty much returned the entire offense. The defense, they lost some guys, but they already added some to the portal, and they've got a bunch of open scholarships for the next transfer portal, and that opens up here in April. And, I think they're going to be fine. He didn't hit the ground running and land a bunch of 5 stars or anything like that out of the portal, but that wasn't really his priority. I mean, the priority was, look, if this team was good last year, and I have to do everything I can to keep the core of the team together, and they lost some talented guys, but the guys they kept are very talented as well, and that seems to have been the most important thing.
Arizona just bludgeoned Arizona State. They're rolling along. Tommy Lloyd, so new AD, and he got a new deal. Was that just because Arizona's happy right now across the board? I know even with the money they need at some point to pay off.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about that is completely donor funded. Basketball and football, the donors it's a very different situation. When basketball needs something, it is very easy to get here in Arizona. So the donors want Tommy Lloyd. He's successful here. He's great in the community. He wants to be here. So they said, you know what, we're gonna lock it up. And that was basically the donors and President Robbins. That's been worked on behind the scenes for weeks now. That it didn't come as a surprise. That's something that they've been working on. But it's kind of, you're entering the Big 12. You have a new AD, but now your football and your basketball coach are locked up for years to come. And I think that's important as you transition and try to cut costs and all that.
How do the Wildcats, who are a blue blood when it comes to college basketball, I know people think Duke, North Carolina, UCLA, but Arizona's got some skins in the wall, whether that's what they are or not. How do they look at what they're about to enter with the Big 12, with how competitive this conference has been?
There's two sides to it. I think everyone's happy that it is competitive. The Pac-12, when you lose in the Pac-12, it's a bad loss. I mean, especially this season. There's really very few, I should say, good losses. When you lose in the Big 12, you usually are losing to a good team. But on the same note, I'm trying to prepare people saying, look, Arizona's not going through the Big 12 with 2 conference losses. They're not winning. They're not beating teams in the Big 12 by 45 points like they did the other night. It's going to be different. And I think Arizona fans are going to have to get used to that, and that's going to be a transition. But there is a lot of excitement with basketball because of that. Like this year, Arizona had to load up on out-of-conference schedule, and it was fun. But the reason you do that is because the in-conference just isn't that good. And so now you're looking and the Monday night games, the national games, there's a lot more to it with Arizona. And people feel that basically the program will be in a type of conference that it belongs to be in.
Hey, during that time when all sorts of speculation and what you were reporting during the Pac-12 breakup and with USC, UCLA, and eventually everybody else, and then Oregon State, Washington State, Kirk Schultz was always very much public and always seemed to be like the most positive person in the room, which is fine, trying to help his own school. But he had a quote, was it yesterday or the day? It was yesterday, that said, I don't think they really like my proposal all that well. It didn't go over very well in the room about them, Oregon State, Washington State, remaining Autonomy 5 in a couple of years. What, in the end, are your thoughts about what he's done? He's probably one of the few that understands athletics as a president of a university.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a Washington State fan, I absolutely appreciate what he's done. I mean, I think the effort is there. I think they were put in a very difficult position. And my guess is if you were to ask him and the Oregon State president, they would both say the same thing, which is they put too much trust into the other Pac-12 schools, and they kind of took them at their word. And in the world of realignment, you can't do that. And I'm not surprised that they didn't have a seat at the table, so to speak, with the playoffs, because there's no money there, and it all goes back to money. And I feel bad for them, but I think they came out relatively well. I like the plan they have with the Mountain West. I think it kind of allows them to continue to look at options, but you can only do so much. If you want to join the Big 12, that's great, but you need an invitation to join the Big 12. You don't just say, I'm in there. And right now, in the world of money and the way college athletics is, they don't bring enough in for a conference to feel that they're worth the addition.
All right. Desiree Reed-Francois, the new AD, you published her contract. It looks like it's pretty damn good, Jason. Not only the salary that starts at $1 million, but there are incentives, money that's pushed into the, retirement. And this looks pretty darn good from what she's got.
Yeah, it's a great contract, and again, the donors put in a certain percentage and made it happen. I'm actually, that one surprised me, and the reason it surprised me is because when the whole thing went down with Dave Hickey getting let go, I was basically told not to look at a sitting AD because Arizona couldn't afford it, could not afford a buyout, and clearly Robbins was able to come out with relationships with boosters to help them afford that buyout. This doesn't happen without them. But it is a legit AD contract, and they got the person that they wanted. They didn't use a search firm or anything like that. But it's basically what Dave Hickey was making, except with more incentives, and the incentives that she does have are pretty realistic. She's definitely gonna hit many of those incentives.
Jason, thank you. Always great to have you on, buddy. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me. Thank you as always.
Jason Scheer, 247 Sports, Wildcat Authority.